Hey, welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. Fired up about today's episode. We have an absolute superstar on the show with us today who's going to help us navigate this question. Obviously, we know that the industry has a number of disruptors circling. We know that real estate agents have more of a need today to be on their A game, serving the customer at their highest level possible. And today's guest, Jason Abrams, he's a Keller Williams agent out of Michigan, although he owns teams all over the place. He's been selling homes for 20 years, right out of high school, stepped right into his real estate name badge. He's a broker owner, a team owner. He was actually on HGTV. If some of you remember this show, it was HGTV. It was Scoring the Deal, in which he would facilitate the purchase of beautiful homes by sports stars. Sounds like a cool show. I haven't seen it actually, but you've got me super interested to go back and find.
It's okay. I mean, the only people that my mom watched it regularly. So.
Hey, it was with 3 seasons. I don't buy that, Jason.
No, it was just you and 13 million other Americans. That's all. You don't have to go back.
The truth. There's the truth. In addition, Jason is the partner in Metrics Coaching and Training, which we're going to talk a little bit about as well. So with that, Jason, thank you for coming on the show today. It's a total pleasure to have you here.
It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this guy is a big thinker. He's actually spending a fair amount of time right now in Austin helping to develop technology that serves the customer and the agent at the highest level. So, Jason, let's get into this. We have, as we all know, a very changing, disrupting real estate landscape. What can we, in fact, before I do that, because we'll get into business and we won't stop. I know kind of that's my nature. So let's talk about stuff that matters a little bit more than business right now. I know you're a dad. I'm a dad. And that is probably the reason why we're deeply invested in the real estate industry, is to provide a better life for people, our people, right, that matter most. Tell me, what's your favorite part about being a dad, Jason?
Yeah, everyone always asks about the technology in the real estate business off the bat. They very rarely go to what's your favorite part about being a parent. And I'll tell you, it's challenging, no question about it. But I think that it gives you this idea of this immersive experience, which I think is unique to our industry, in that residential real estate is really a contact sport, and it's an all-the-time game. Meaning we don't start our day at 9 and end our day at 5 and then go home and have the luxury, most of us, to just specifically then focus on family. And I think what it does, we bring our customer lives into our own. We bring our business lives into our personal lives, and our personal lives into our business lives. This idea of immersion, I think, is one that as we move forward, you're going to see more education go to, which just, I'm not just going to school from 7 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. to learn. I'm going to learn in every aspect of my life. And the most important thing to learn is how to learn. Not whether I get the right answer, but what was the process that I took to get there. For me, watching a 6-year-old come to terms with how he's going to solve life's challenges, which to him seem massive, like, how do I open this applesauce? It's these constant reminders that the journey that we're all on doesn't end. It simply changes form. And I think about that a lot.
Man, that's powerful. It's almost as if like we'd practiced that question before. And folks, we did not. I totally pulled that on him in a hurry. So I love what you said there, Jason. It reminds me of the university president where I first went to school. It was a 2-year school. He was a new president. He turned out to be a very influential person in the world as well as in my life. And he told a group of business students in their freshman year, because like the question was asked, what should I focus on in my education? He said, here's the reality, is that there's 2 things that you need to walk away from with your education, and neither one of those is a degree. Like that's like second, third tier. That doesn't matter as much. Here are the things you need to learn. Is like number 1, you need to gain a passion and a love for learning. And secondly, you need to learn how to learn. He said those 2 things will carry you further than any degree ever will. In fact, newsflash, the stuff that you're learning here at school, a lot of it's going to be obsolete by the time you get into the workforce. So you better love to learn, and you better know how to learn, because without that, you're going to be behind really, really quickly. So I love what you said about that. I happen to be a father as well. And I think bigger. I've got 6 kids, a little crazy.
Wow. You do think big.
I do in all areas of life. I have a saint for a wife, saint/superhero. In fact, currently she's on the road with 6 kids, driving them all to North Dakota. And you know what it's like up north. You're a northern guy. And so things are a little quieter on my house, eerily quiet. But I love what you said about this passion for learning and watching kids learn. That's really, really profound.
But I just don't think they perceive it that way. I think that we all sit around and try to force ourselves to do activities that we don't like, thinking that those activities are mandated stops along the path of success. I think kids are living this immersive experience differently than we are, in that it's organic for them. And I'm kind of looking back at my life at different times and asking when I decided mentally to make that shift and why I did it, and trying to get back to the organic part of learning.
Just that pure learning at its core, like just out of curiosity, right? Not because someone's telling you have to.
Curiosity and necessity. Like, a lot of us know we need to learn new things, but we don't, because the process to do it is one that we find challenging. And I get it. We usually leave the challenging things for last, or sometimes not at all.
Yeah.
I think the question is flawed, which is, how do I force myself to do things I don't want to do? Whether that's go to the gym every day or read a book we have these things and we say, well, how do I make that happen? I think a better question. If you ask the wrong question, you always get the wrong answer. The question that I like is, how do I love my life and accomplish blank? And when you start thinking in that framework, all of a sudden you're forced to take activities you wouldn't want to do, but then make it so you would enjoy it. I'll tell you what, if you enjoyed the things that you shouldn't be doing, you would do more of the wrong things. If you could find a way to enjoy the stuff that you want to bring into your life, like kids do, I tell you what, man, there's no end.
How to get the life you want, how to get what you want and love it. Those are the two criteria.
How do I love my life and do blank?
Let's awesome stuff, man. Let's parlay into business at kind of the path that I was headed down. Obviously, very changing real estate landscape. Consumers are gaining more and more, and rightfully so, right? We live in an era when consumers are gaining more power. They're having more choices. How does a real estate agent that wants to serve a customer, knowing that serving a customer at the highest level will ensure that they have work to do for the rest of their career? What advice would you give a real estate agent that's coming into this era, that's living in this era, about how do I continue to serve the customer at the highest level?
The only thing I want to take a little bit of exception with, I don't think the consumer is gaining more power than they've had. I think they're being empowered to use their power. Meaning we both know that it's always been 100% up to the consumer. How do I price my house? Which agent do I decide to do business with? What marketing plan do I accept? How much am I willing to pay in commission? All of these things have always been up to the consumer. Yeah. It's only now with these changes in technology that I think they're starting to feel more empowered to either A, wade into these conversations, or B, use different services that offer different value propositions.
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe that people do business with people they like. See, I think that there's a lot of things in life that you can automate that you choose not to because you enjoy the experience. So real estate agents, I think, need to fundamentally look at the way the consumer experience is being provided with their value, and then ask, do they like that, and is the way they want it to continue? I was speaking the other day in front of a group, and I was relaying a story that in 2008, Rolling Stone did this article that said the movie theater is dead. They said that you have plummeting ticket sales, you have the cost of flat screen TVs going down, and the number of home theaters being put into new builds is going up, and this is all a perfect storm, and the movie theater is dead. And somebody read that and said, you know what, they're right. Somebody else read that and said, it's not the movie theater that's dead. It's the consumer experience once they're there that is. Meaning, what if instead of going there and fighting for a seat, they could go onto their phone and in 2 clicks pick the seat they want and not have the anxiety of worrying about it? And what if once they got there, instead of being an uncomfortable chair, it was a leather recliner? And what if once you got and you were watching the movie, instead of hoping that your significant other leaves you some popcorn, which they don't, but let's just pretend they did, what if you could get rid of the popcorn altogether and have a full steak dinner? And what if instead of a Diet Coke served in like a garbage can sized drink, you could get like a bottle of wine? And what if with all of that, the cost really did not have to materially change? And for everyone watching, I would say, raise your hand if you've been to a theater like that. Most of you would all raise your hands because movie ticket sales are at an all-time high. So the question isn't, was the theater dead? The question is, was the experience? And when we start thinking in that framework, real estate agents who are so progressive in the way that they think and able to move so quickly in the way that they run their businesses, I would challenge every one of them. Wake up tomorrow and ask a childlike question of your business, which is this the right way to do it? And what could I make cooler and feel better? And there's no end to the innovation that they can have. The realtor today is in a better position than ever before. And I say that because right now you get to reimagine almost every part of your business. It's those of us that don't do that, that choose to shirk from the innovator's dilemma of reimagining of it, that I think are going to be in for it. There was a CNBC article out with Jeff Bezos the other day, and they said, why do so few people innovate? And he said, well, it's hard. Number one, you first have to become an expert in the subject matter. So if you and I were going to innovate eye surgery, he said, we would both have to become experts in the way eye surgery is done today. And that might take 20 years. And then at that point, we would have to be willing to ask a childlike question, which is, if we threw all that out, what would be a better way to do it? And most people after 20 years that hit a point don't want to ask that question. They want to just be in achievement phase, and innovation gets stifled. I would submit to you that the challenge before all realtors is they finally have to ask that question, a childlike curiosity question. How can I reimagine showing a home tomorrow such that the buyer would be unwilling to not look at homes with me? How can I reimagine lead generation such that I woke up every day excited about doing it? How can I reimagine the selling process such that the consumer would never think about taking a third-party offer from an iBuyer? They would have to call a realtor because they would enjoy it that much. You see, that's the free market at best, and we're at a time when I think it's about to shine.
You know, I love that. I do feel like there's been a lot of heels digging in, a lot of let's sue them so they can't do this. Let's build a moat around what we've built for decades. Like, nobody can take this from us. Where I agree, that proposition will lose, right? Because it's a scarcity mindset rather than how can I leverage the new technology out there and serve the customer at a higher level? How do I take my value proposition from here to here as a result of what's out there, as opposed to feeling threatened by it? How do I embrace it to better serve the customer? And I love what you said, reimagine the customer experience. Be like, what would make people so delighted to work with me that like these other options, like they get that, yeah, there's an iBuyer program. Yeah, there's even kind of the part-time hobby agents. And then there's my agent. And it's apples to oranges. It's not the same thing, right? It's
no, you're exactly right. Keep in mind that one of the things that makes our industry so unique is the way that the structure provides that all of us are running autonomous businesses, even if we're at the same brokerage house. And that allows every one of us to have a unique value proposition. And I believe the natural order of things that works best is when the real estate agent is at the center of the transaction, providing a value proposition that the consumer and the realtor both agree is worth blank. Now, what blank is in regards to commission is open for every real estate agent to defend and every seller and buyer's agent to get to decide. And when we operate under that framework, it should force us all to get better at what we do. And by the way, this idea that that one company is going to be at the forefront of it, or two companies are going to be at the forefront of it, I'll tell you this, it works best when 1.3 million agents, regardless of affiliation, are at the forefront of it. That's what I'm hoping we see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do agree with you that there's a group and not necessarily tied to an age demographic. I mean, I see the same resistance in agents that just got started, right? Or have been in the business 5 years. But this unwillingness to innovate and to be excited about the future of real estate, as opposed to the sky is falling in real estate. I don't think that's the right approach. Powerful stuff.
If anybody out there thinks that the sky is falling, let's just a brief history lesson. This isn't the first time in our industry when you've had people come in and try to disrupt it or change the way they're doing it. I would submit to you that the quote unquote business graveyards are full of people who thought they were going to come in and fundamentally change the residential real estate business. And it's the ability of the real estate agent to stay likable with their consumer and stay at the center of the transaction that's confounded all of these different tech enterprises and third parties. And I'll tell you this, there are a lot of brokers out there that don't understand it either. But we need to be cognizant of the fact that should we lose the human interaction with our consumers, then we've really ceded our superpower to the competition. Meaning that I believe that everything that's out there now, and I can only speak to what I've seen, the technologies that work the best are the ones that make the real estate agent more human, more often, and with more people. Never forget that this has always been a knuckle-to-knuckle, belly-to-belly business, and relationships are going to be made sitting at kitchens with people. The question is will those relationships be nurtured over the long term using different pieces of technology? And one of the things we need to be cognizant of is agreeing that the changes that are happening within our industry serve to move the industry forward. Trying to fight the fact that the consumer mindset is changing is a losing battle. Mm-hmm. We need to look up and grab our arms around it, because I've been to conferences where I hear people talking about the future of the residential real estate business. And then it dawns on me that the people I'm listening to have never sold a home a day in their life. And I just want every real estate agent to hear this. They don't get to decide what happens to the future of your real estate business. You and the consumer get to make that decision.
You know, I want to highlight a friend of mine, Harris, out of Vancouver. Maybe you know Harris. Best way to beat technology is to be more human. I also want to say, Jason, just to clarify, and you've said this, but I want to clarify that it's not enough to just be likable. You actually have to be better as well, right? You actually have to have a strong value proposition. I think a lot of agents think that they're going to friend their way through industry disruption. I agree wholeheartedly with you that you absolutely have to be likable, but you've said this, but I just wanted to put it into one statement.
Sure.
That you've got to be very likable, but you actually have to have a value proposition that's strong enough to where the consumer sees your fee as that there's an ROI on that I'm getting value from that.
Well, yeah, well said. That's exactly right. I mean, here's the thing. If the value proposition here's the focusing question. What value would I have to provide so that I take all my listings at 12%? And, that should be the conversation. And if you have that conversation long enough, there's no reason why our industry won't get to that point.
Yeah. It's good stuff. So if you were an agent today, how do you tactically start to implement this? What does this look like for an agent, boots on the ground, who's out there trying to implement? Be more likable. Give us a couple tactics on how you be more likable, Jason. You're a pretty likable guy.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Well, I think number one, it starts with figuring out who you need to be likable to. So every real estate agent out there, and I don't care whether you sell 10 homes a year or 10,000 homes a year, the base of your business begins and should have a foundation around your sphere of influence. Those that know you, like you, friend, family, neighbor, past relative, past client. We need to reconnect with that group of people. Mainly because doing one transaction is great, but being a real estate agent for life as a true advocate is far better. When I teach in rooms, and I always say, raise your hand if you have past customers that you haven't spoken to in the last 90 to 120 days. And everyone raises their hand. And I would submit to you that that's an epidemic. We can't only care about people when it comes time to do a transaction with them, because I think that makes you far less likable. Yeah. You see, the people that are in your data bank, and I call it that because if you fail to make deposits of love and connection into it, you'll never make withdrawals in the form of commission checks. Mm. People do business with people they like isn't that they smile when they see you. It's that they know that you care about them. And so here's the challenge that I would give every realtor. If you were to go through your data bank right now and make your list, and I was to ask you about that person's family, occupation, recreation, and life dreams, how many could you tell me? And if you can't tell me, I call that Ford, right? And that was written by an amazing woman named Diana Kokoska. If you can't tell me the Ford about those people, I don't know really how likable they think you are to them. And I'm not really sure that they're still your people. And in a day and age of technology and artificial intelligence where the third parties are literally trying to take your people from you, and they're using search and they're using automated value and they're using all of these other things to do that, this is your weapon to fight back. So step number one, aggregate your people and know who they are. Step number two is get those people into some sort of a platform that allows you to keep in touch with them with not only consistently, but with passion. Meaning that I'm going to send touches that people actually care about. And that may begin by just asking, how am I showing up for my people right now? Meaning, am I sending them one-to-many emails about like how to get your house ready for the fall? And is that really connecting with them? And is that meaningful? This one-to-many idea has to become more of a one-to-one idea. Yeah. And then the third thing is you're going to have to find a way to intersperse making these connections with people into your life in a way that you enjoy it. The fact that I say to a room, how many of you have touched base with your past clients and so few of them can raise their hand? Well, if you actually enjoyed doing that, I bet you would do it more often. And so, I don't know, maybe counting the number of contacts you make tomorrow isn't the best pitch for you, but maybe talking about the number of people who you learned something about and enjoyed the interaction with might be a good way to judge.
I love it. Very tactical tips. Awesome stuff, Jason. I like keeping these interviews short. I feel like I want to keep you on just because I'm learning so much from you. If people are feeling the same way as I, and they're like, Justin, don't end the interview. This guy's really, really bright. I'm gonna end with our signature question, and then I want to direct people to where they can find more about your coaching company and how to continue to learn from you. I think that's an important thing, is to find mentors, people that with whom you resonate. So here's the signature question of the show, Jason. What is a guy like you who is a big thinker? What is it that you do on a regular basis to stay that way, to not get content, to continue to think big and expand your own possibilities?
Again, I should have watched the show so I knew the signature question before you asked it a few times. So I'll make sure to keep watching from now on. I'll tell you, man, I do a lot of reading. And you probably hear that from everybody that comes in, but I spent so many years of my life trying to avoid reading before I finally started to enjoy it. I look at it now and wish I would have spent so much more time doing it. I really think in today's day and age, where information moves at the speed of now, you have to have a regular cadence of how you're going to bring information into your life on a daily basis. So I wake up in the morning. My business partner, Brian Gubernick, he always says, what makes you weird? My morning cadence is probably a little bit weird. I'm not waking up at 4:30 and eating vegetable baby food and then running an Ironman. I am waking up, though, naturally, probably around 6:30, and then I have 5 or 6 websites that I'm going to check every day. I'm going to look into the thought leaders within the industry. I have a couple of blogs that I follow, and then I'm going to be checking the news, not just in the United States, but around the world, so that I can better understand how the global economy is working. Then once I get into my day, in my calendar, I have these 15-minute slots to stop what I'm doing and just try to read. If I try to read for more than 15 minutes, I have a hard time. I try to do that 5 or 6 times a day. And here's what I think you'll find. If you start bringing new ideas into your life for smaller increments throughout the day, it's going to elevate the way that you think during your entire day. If you try to read for 2 hours at the end of the day, you're going to find that it only permeates that small segment right before and right after.
Powerful stuff, man. I haven't heard that, but it's the same thing with diet, right? Those that are super fit, they say small meals, right? Every 2 hours, high in protein. And what you're teaching is the same thing for your mind, really, is every couple of hours, you're taking 15 minutes, kind of a small, high potent, high energy value content, putting it in your mind so that you can move and act with it for the next 2 hours until you need a refresh.
Yeah, and I enjoy it in 15-minute increments. I don't enjoy it in 25-minute increments. And that goes back to what I said at the beginning. How do I love my life and blank? In this case, it was how do I love my life and start reading more? And I started with an hour. I'm down to 15 minutes now. I don't think I can get it any shorter than that. I just have to do it now more often. But that's what I mean with that kind of thinking framework. Now,
do you read or do you listen? I
actually read it.
Paperback book, or you have it like on your phone?
No, I like pages. I like turning them. I like writing in them. I think that for everyone watching, I always say whenever you listen to anybody, you either need to get a system or a model. And if you don't, it just becomes this wandering meander through their life and how they think about it. So when I say the model here is how do I love my life and do blank, that's the structure. Then I ask myself, well, what's the overall strategy here? Well, I want to get smarter by reading. Well, what tactic am I going to use? I'm going to read 4 times a day, 5 times a day at this smaller increment. When you start to work in that framework, you can solve any problem in your life.
It's good stuff, man. So powerful. I want to make one more highlight of something that you said during the show that hopefully people didn't miss, which is this whole concept of being likable, right? Is that people, like real estate agents, know far more than even their clients necessarily need to know a lot of times. But people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Like that foundational step of what you said, of actually knowing what's happening in their life, not only allows you to customize your knowledge to get them to where they want to go, but it also opens their heart and their mind to where they want to listen to you because they actually like you. So appreciate the wisdom that you shared in all areas of life, everything from fatherhood to growing yourself, being a big thinker, to thriving during this new generation in which we're reimagining the customer experience. Jason, it's been a total pleasure. I want to thank you for pouring into the Think Bigger real estate audience today. Super happy and excited to have you in my network. I want to thank Harris again for his comment and for the many others that are watching. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future, my friend.
Cool. Thanks for having me, guys. Good luck, everybody.
Hey, and one last thing, everybody, go think bigger.